With 6-2, you are adding, subtracting like terms, and you are multiplying using those same rules that we used in 6-1. First examples are adding and subtracting 3x squared minus 2x plus 3. And you are adding that to x squared plus 4x minus 2. So you're adding those two polynomials together. Now, I stressed this before the test when we were doing complex numbers, where we were adding, subtracting, and multiplying, and a lot of you still mess that up on the test. You've got to recognize this sign in the middle there. What do we do with that? What does that say? Adding. So would you be trying to multiply these two problems together? Some of you would, unfortunately. But no, you've got to see that is addition. That is not multiplication. All you are doing here is adding like terms. So you've got a 3x squared here. Are there any other x squared terms? Yes. What's the number in front of that? So you have 3x squared plus 1x squared. How many x squareds would you have? 4 of them. And this is where some people get confused as far as the exponents go. Did we just multiply these two numbers together? So are we going to use the multiply with the same base you had the exponents rules? No. That is for multiplication. We just said we added them, we did not multiply them. You do not use that rule. You're adding or subtracting like terms. The best thing you can do when you're adding these is treat this x squared like it's actually an object that you can pick up off of your paper. That you can pick up the x squared. And so if you had 3 x squareds in your hand and you added 1 x squared to them, you would have 4 x squareds. It's just like apples or oranges or anything else that you could have. Treat it like an object. It doesn't change. Some people want to do 3 and somehow they would end up with maybe 3x to the 4th there because you're multiplying and you're adding the exponents. Not what you're doing here. So treat it like an actual object that you're just combining like terms. And again, you can cross those off. The next term we have is just x to the first, however you want to look at it. Do we have any other of those? Yeah. So you have negative 2x's. Again, treat the x like an object. You have negative 2x, and you're adding 4 x's to it. How many x's would you have? Positive 2. So plus 2x. Cross those off. And then you just have your constant terms, regular numbers, no variables. You have 3 here plus negative 2 would leave you with plus 1. And you combine all the like terms. That's as simplified out as you can get. Just adding, subtracting. Questions before we move on? Subtraction, of course, is the more difficult because you have to find your signs. 2x to the third plus 5x minus 7. Minus x to the third minus 3x plus 2. So what operation are we doing with these two polynomials? Subtraction. Big sign right there in between them is subtraction. You are not multiplying these. So we're just going to add and subtract like terms. We have 2x cubed over here. Do we have any others? We got 1 over here. So we have 2x cubed, and we're subtracting 1. How many do we have left? Just 1. Cross them off. And then we've got positive 5x minus negative 3x. Would give you 8x. Now, that's where the sign problems start, because some of you will do 5x minus 3x and get 2x. You You've got to remember the sign in the middle. That's 5 minus -3. And then last, -7 minus 2 will be -9. And again, the next thing they will have you do is distribute. So that's adding and subtracting like terms. We've already kind of done one of the distributing problems. -2x times the quantity, -3x squared minus 11x plus 20. So when we distribute, what operation do we do? Multiply. Yeah, you're one step ahead, which is good. So we are going to multiply here. So we're probably going to use the when you multiply rule. And you're going to multiply times everything inside there, just distributing like you've done many times in the past. And so you're going to multiply these two terms. Back in section 1, this was the whole problem. Just add these two side by side. Now you're moving on, adding things to it. So -2 times -3 is 6, and then you're multiplying with the same base. You add the exponents there, x to the third. Moving on then, you're doing -2 times -11 is positive 22. And x times x, again, adding the exponents will give you x squared. And -2x times 20, -40. And yes, you've still got your x. So do we have any like terms here now? We got an x cubed, x squared, and an x. No. So don't try to add those together. These are not. This is apples, these are oranges, and that's pears. They're not like terms. What? Why not put your bases together? Because these aren't like terms. This is x to the third. It's not the same as x squared. This is the problem right here, because you could multiply these two things together, and you get 66x to the what? If you were multiplying. Fifth. And some people think that's what you do. That's why you have to remember this is adding. You're adding these two things together, which you can't do because they are not like terms. But you could multiply them. That's where you've got to really pay attention to what you're doing. Again, this is obviously addition between the two. There's no way to combine. 2x times 7x squared minus 3x plus 5. So again, distributing to all three numbers inside there. 2x times 7x squared. 2 times 7, first of all, would give you 14, and then multiplying the x's, you have x cubed, and then 2 times -3 minus 6, and combining those x's, x squared, and plus 10x. Again, these are not the same. You can't combine those by addition or subtraction. One other thing, didn't give me any examples of, but there are some in your homework. There aren't any examples because you should know very well how to do them, but it is FOIL. So you do have some problems that look just like that in your homework. You've got to realize, first of all, you have to realize they're both binomials. There's two terms in each one of them. And what is the sign in between? what does this mean when there's nothing there? And that, again, if you don't recognize that, there's very slim chance you can get the problem right. So you FOIL, F-O-I-L. F stands for first. So you multiply the first thing in each set of parentheses. And 2x times x would give you 2x squared. And again, that's multiplying with the same base. You did the rule, and sometimes you don't even have to think about it. Then outside, the O in FOIL, the two outside farthest outside numbers. X times -3 minus 3x. Then you do the inside terms. That would give you 12x. And the last, the two numbers in the last, would give you -18. Now you look for like terms. Do you have any like terms there now? Yeah, you got two sets of x's. These are the same variable. You can combine those. So 2x squared, and then combining the x's, what would you have there? What? Plus what? Plus 9x, you combine those, minus 18, that's what you end up with. So again, there are several of those, just plain FOIL problems. One problem in your homework looks like this. What does the squared mean there? Right, but what does squaring mean? What do you do when you square times itself? So what you need to know on your homework, when you see something that looks like that, which you will, then you need to write it 2 times and FOIL it. That's just another way of telling you that that's what you need to do. So when you see that, make sure you do that. That's a good question, because there's a minus inside there. She asked, why wouldn't you just square everything inside there like we did last time? Because this is a subtraction problem inside there. If you had 2x 3y, which you wouldn't, you might have 2x times 3y. If you had that, or we'll just make it 2xy. If you had that squared, then that's the other rule, because this is one term in here you're multiplying together, 2xy. So over here, this is a subtraction problem inside there, so you don't distribute that in. That's what I said in the beginning, a lot of rules. But if you remember the rules, or if you have them written down and you can look at the rules even, you should be able to figure these out. But yeah, that was a good question. One last problem, there's a couple of them in homework. Probably be one of the ones we grade, so I wouldn't not do it. You have x plus 4 times x squared plus 6x minus 2. What operation is between the two sets now? Multiplication again. But are they two binomials? No, so you're not going to FOIL these two. You can't just do the FOIL process, because you have a binomial here times a trinomial over there, 3 terms. So here's how you do these. You're going to take the x times all 3 numbers, and then you're going to take the 4 times all 3 numbers, and then combine like terms. It's really not that difficult. They're just often, you'll have 6 numbers down here. So we multiply again, x times all 3 numbers. So x times x squared, x cubed, x times 6x, 6x squared, and x times -2, minus 2x. So you're done with this x. If you wanted to, you could cross that off. You're not going to use that anymore. You're going to do the same thing with the 4. 4 times all 3 numbers. So first one you'd have 4 times x squared, be 4x squared, positive. And then 4 times 6x plus 24x. And 4 times -2 is -8. So you got your 6 terms out there. And you combine them. Do you have any other x to the thirds? No, so that stays in your answer. Cross it off. Do you have any other x squareds? So we have 6x squareds here. We're adding 4 more. We now have 10 x squareds. You got -2 x's here, and you're adding 24 x's. Plus 22x. And you got your -8, no other terms like it. That's how you combine. Homework for this section is 4 through 12 even. And 22 through 36 even.